Another definite integral using the fundamental theorem of calculus, part 2. We're also going to use the power rule again. This problem is already in a form that we can integrate, so let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to add 1 to this 9 halves power, and that's going to give me t to the 11 halves power. Then we have to divide by 11 halves. I'll copy the coefficients down. Then I'm going to add 1 to this 7 halves power. That gives me a 9 halves power, and we have to divide by that 9 halves. Then we're going to evaluate this integral, the lower limit of 4 and an upper limit of 12. We're dividing by a fraction here with both of these terms, and as usual that means we flip the fraction over and multiply. When we multiply, I'm getting 16/11 for the first term and 8/9 for the second term. Technically there should be some parentheses around all this stuff. The fundamental theorem of calculus now says that we're going to plug t equals 12 into this function, we're going to subtract, and then we're going to plug t equals 4 into this function. That's going to look pretty bad, but let's see what it looks like. Now, an 11 halves power means that we're taking a square root and we're raising that to the 11th power. Now, we can take the square root of 4 and raise that to the 11th power, and the square root of 4 here and raise that to the 9th power. But the square root of 12 is still not really going to reduce. It'll still have a square root in it. So probably what we want to do is just enter this answer as it is. And if you're entering this into the internet somewhere to try to figure out what this value is, it can be kind of tricky. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to type up how this answer would need to be entered into some computer system. So I'm going to start with the big parenthesis on the outside. 16/11 is fine as it is. Now 12, we're going to raise that to a fractional power. And when we raise something to a power that's a fraction, we need to put that fraction in parentheses. Then we're going to take 8/9 and multiply that by 12 to the 9 halves power. So that power has to be in parentheses as well. And then we'll close off that term. Let me make this a bit bigger for you. So that's our first term. Our second term has a 16/11 on it. We're going to take 4 and we're going to raise that to the 11 halves power. Now with this 4 to the 11 halves power, you could have taken the square root and just called it 2 to the 11th power, and that might be a little bit simpler. We'll raise 4 to the 9 halves power. We'll close off our parentheses, and that answer right there should work. When you plug that into Google or Wolfram Alpha or whatever you're plugging this thing into, that should work to give you a number. And I just copied and pasted this and checked it, and it worked for me. So good. I hope that helps. Let's keep moving. Let's go to the next problem.